So in this morning, Honorable Shabalala asked a question. Pan-Africanism, we can't talk about Pan-Africanism if we can't return it to where and to who we are. So that's going to be my first question to our panelists. As their bio comes up, I think we need to center ourselves and ground ourselves in our Pan-Africanism. And for me, where am I from? I also identify as a Pan-African feminist, but I think today I was challenged a little bit. I'm not so sure I know where I come from. But surprisingly, and for our former minister, Tabitha, who used to be a minister in my province, my grandmother was also a descendant of Mbuyaneanda. She came from an area called Mazoe. And in this area, when a dam was built, there was a snake which used to shake the bridge. And that was the spirit of what they used to call Ambuya. It's like go-go. It's like yeah. So it was quite interesting because she had what the Christians call water spirits. Because when the ancestors came upon her, she would ask for water. And we little children fascinated about this woman. She had so much power, and she had been born on the road, and her mother's name, and her name was actually Chenzira. So even the naming was so interesting because they would name you either by the season you're born or by something significant. And of course, I come from a country where they've all names like my name, memory, love more, talk more, agriculture, any name that you may think of. But there's also, so I asked, why do we have such weird names? And one interpretation was when you were going to register, the white people wanted you to register. First and foremost, we don't know the actual births because you'll be told, oh, she was born when it was raining. So I'm not even sure my actual birthday is my birthday. But at least for mine, it was a little bit better. So you didn't know when you were actually born. And then they'll say your name in your language is too complicated because our consonants, it would be N and T and H, Z and G. So they'll be like, what's the English version? So people will just name English version. And because we're colonized, if your name was not English, then you wouldn't be accepted. But anyway, I think we're challenged today. And I also, from the totem, we didn't have tribes. This whole tribal. So thanks, Honorable Chabalala. We had totems. So totems were across. So you'd find someone in Malawi, in Mozambique, being of the same totem, which identified with an animal. And now from the same one with Tabitha, which is called the Chihera. So these women, it's actually the women who own the property. Everything is in their name. So there's absolutely nothing feminist. Then I'm like, okay, so that's who I am. And they are teased because they rule. So rulership is within them. And there's actually no male equivalent of their totem. Yeah, actually their totem is a male, it's a male, I don't know, when you start this gender normative, it's a male expression. So they don't have like a female. So the female one really kind of doesn't exist. So they're also seen as and cited as men. So that's where I come from. So we have amazing panelists, and we are honored today to have Your Excellency Ambassador Salah Saidin Hamed, who is the head of the African Governance Architecture. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you know where you come from? As we just go deep dive into reflecting. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for having me with you this morning. And I'm grateful to be part of this conversation. and also quite delighted and pleased and happy and honored to be within the midst of leaders, women leaders from across the continent. I'm a he for she, and my name is Salah. I used to go by the name Salah Muhammad. Muhammad is the last name. But then, because I travel a lot on missions, everywhere I go, the hotel management will be expecting the real Muhammad Salah to appear. And then they will be quite disappointed when they see a different Muhammad Salah. So because of that, I now use my other grandfather's name, and that is Hamad, H-A-M-M-A-D, instead of Muhammad. And I hope no football player will emerge again with this also last. Because otherwise I will just go with no name. I will just call my name unknown. On a serious note, I'm quite happy to be part of this conversation, and thank you for inviting the AGA ABSA, the African Governance Architecture of the African Union, to be part of this very important meeting, and allow me to stand on the protocol that is currently in existence. Honorable Shabalala mentioned quite a number of queens. And one of them, in fact, happened to be my great-grandmother, and that is Amani Rinas. Amani Rinas happened to be the greatest queen of the pharaohs. And I remember growing up, my mom, well, we call her mama, but my mother used to be the head of the household in the absence of my father, who used to travel around the continent, I would say, looking for, for financial means to be sent back home to raise the family. But in reality, I was raised by my mom. I'm the last born, and I came at a time when there was no any expectation to have a child. So the difference between me and the person, and the sister before me, is almost 15 years. Yes, and my mom was the one who was there all the time, advising me, guiding me, and she always used to remind me of the fact that, you see, your grandma Amani Rinas used to say this and to say that. She used to do this and to do that. And one of the few things that always in the back of my head, that as a man, I always have to see a woman, any woman, whether she is from the same tribe of us or not, as a queen. And in fact, some of the rules that were established until now in our village, if a husband hates his wife, he can no longer testify in the court. Not only that, if he divorces his wife for any reason, no family will remarry him again. And he will stay as isolated and single for the rest of his life. This is just a few of the rules that I still remember. But then, and I will try to be quick, the few things that I remember from that time, now I'm trying to share them with the youth across the continent, as we call them the African shared values. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. I'll go to you, Madame Cécile. Bonjour and bienvenue. Feel free to speak in the language you are comfortable with.
Bonjour. I will speak in French. My apologies. Pour répondre à la question, est-ce que je sais d'où je viens? Je peux dire oui et non. Et j'ai été très intimement touchée par le speech de Honorable Tshabalala ce matin, parce que ça m'a obligée à me poser des questions. Je suis fièrement Dédé d'Almeida, première fille de mon père, originaire du Togo, vivant au Mali depuis une vingtaine d'années. Et chez moi, quand tu dis Dédé, tout le monde sait d'où tu viens. quelle est ta famille, quel est ton rang dans ta famille. Je suis l'aînée de 3 filles et c'est aussi quelque chose qui m'interpelle aussi sur cet héritage transgénérationnel. Honorable a cité beaucoup de femmes, des guerrières. J'ai eu envie, et je l'ai fait d'ailleurs dans mon cœur, de dire long life à ma mère, à ma grand-mère, à sa mère avant elle et sa mère avant elle. Parce que elles sont aussi pour nous aujourd'hui des devancières qui ont porté ces valeurs dont Excellence parle, qui, dans la transmission, malgré toutes les pesanteurs socioculturelles qui existent, ont réussi à garder ce qui était essentiel dans notre culture, dans notre société, en ajoutant à leur façon à elles aussi de traverser le monde. Parce qu'elles ont eu des défis au moment où elles étaient jeunes. Et nous, aujourd'hui, jeune génération, je me considère comme jeune, estimons que nos devancières sont dépassées et avons souvent du mal à montrer de l'humilité et apprendre. Et je pense que cet espace ici est en cela extraordinaire parce qu'il y a plusieurs générations représentées ici et cette transmission est extrêmement importante. Et je voudrais remercier à moi de nous avoir associés à ça. Je m'appelle donc Dédé Célia d'Almeida, je viens du Mali. Je suis la représentante pays de l'Institut néerlandais pour la démocratie multipartite, Netherlands Institute for Multipartite Democracy. Et je suis également en charge de la coordination pour le Sahel, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. Je m'arrête là pour le moment. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Merci. So we coming back to the women's political participation barometer. I think Chimwe and Maureen actually said numbers don't lie. We have the numbers. As African activists, one thing that the policymakers will say, show us the numbers. And as women in politics, we have been showing them the numbers. We have been showing them the statistics, and we have it out there, but we actually live beyond those numbers. So I'm very excited that today we're able to have an insight into the barometer, and we just want to hear your reflections on the findings from the report. What is the future perspective of women's leadership on the continent? I'll start with you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. I do believe that having numbers, and good numbers in fact, should not be the only platform that we need to depend on. Why? Because the participation of women in African politics or in politics in Africa is not a wish or a dream. It's a reality. It is part of our life. Why? I always say that if we consider Africa to be a bird will not fly with one wing. It needs 2 wings, a man and a woman, to fly. And sadly, until today, and we are living in this era, we see political participation of women is still like a dream, I would say. Why? Simply because it is about women. At the time, these women are our mothers, they are our wives and sisters and daughters, grandmothers, and we heavily depend on them to run our home affairs. But when it comes to the political arena, we see them as creatures that are coming from another planet. And I think this is not fair. This is absolutely not fair. Women deserve to be leaders. Why? Because as the Honorable Shabalala put it before, that within our African history, African queens have done a lot for this continent. They preserved our social fabrics. They developed the continent even more than men at that time. So if they could succeed at that time, why can't also they can be successful today? In addition to that, I think it's quite important for us to realize the fact that it is time for women to force their way through to the table. Because if you don't do so, even if there is an empty seat around the table, you might not be invited. Last but not least, and I think this is also quite important, that we need to realize the fact that there are a very good number of instruments, treaties, pronouncements, standards that are out there. But what is the level of implementation at the national level? Why men are shying away from implementing the instruments that they have agreed to adopt? Why? And I think the time has come to also for us to rewrite the history ourselves as Africans. Because the history we have today doesn't speak about the women's successful stories that we have. So why can't we again focus on the fact that the participation of women in African politics is an added value to our Agenda 2063, to our dreams, our hope, our Pan-Africanism movement, our African Renaissance movement. And without women, again, we can't really achieve our goals and objectives. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come back to you a little later. Just think about the African Governance Charter, where you lead, and we'll come back and ask a little bit deeper as well. Madame Cecile, what are your reflections? What stood out when you were seeing those statistics that you live every day in your institution, the things that you experience and that you advocate and push for?
Merci beaucoup pour la question. Les chiffres sont une illustration, mais qui n'est pas complète à mon entendement. Parce que aujourd'hui encore, il y a énormément d'actrices qui ne sont pas répertoriées, qui ne sont pas dans l'image. Et il me semble que pour pousser à la décision politique, pour alimenter la discussion, pour forcer la décision, oui, les chiffres sont importants. Il faudrait aussi, comme on l'a fait ce matin, déjà les célébrer parce que ils sont quelque part un accomplissement. On vient de loin. Maintenant, ils démontrent aussi la grandeur du défi, qui est celui de cette appropriation de tous les challenges qui sont les nôtres. J'allais dire en tant que femme, mais tout simplement en tant qu'acteur. J'aime bien l'image de son excellence de l'Afrique, mais de l'humanité, qui est un oiseau avec deux ailes, et si une aile est cassée, cette humanité n'ira nulle part. Et donc, il est important, et c'est le travail que nous faisons depuis quelques années, et je voudrais saluer ici l'accompagnement très inspirationnel de Akina Mamawa Africa aux côtés de NIMD Sahel pour booster ces compétences de ces femmes et leur capacité à défier le statu quo. Parce que c'est vraiment ça. C'est qu'il existe un statu quo, il existe des normes qui ont été si profondément ancrées que même le 1% est déjà une grande victoire. Maintenant, il nous semble important de ne plus nous satisfaire de ces 1% et de bousculer ces normes, de bousculer ce statu quo. Et comment faire ça? C'est, à notre avis en tout cas, en augmentant les compétences et les capacités des femmes et de tous ceux qui veulent, ils sont nombreux, être à leur côté pour faire évoluer les choses dans le bon sens. Donc, je ne sais pas si j'ai répondu à votre question, mais je crois qu'il y a énormément d'initiatives au niveau local, au niveau national, au niveau régional, au niveau continental, qui sont des graines que l'on sème, Mais comme c'est un changement structurel, c'est un changement sociétal profond, parce que Honorable Tchabalala l'a dit ce matin, c'est profondément enfoui depuis des siècles dans notre façon d'être, dans notre façon de penser, dans la façon dont nos sociétés, nos États sont construits, qu'il faudra du temps pour y arriver, pour faire bouger les lignes. Et il me semble qu'il nous faut, j'ai utilisé le mot humilité tout à l'heure, avoir l'humilité aussi de nous donner le temps de réussir à faire bouger les lignes et faire augmenter ces chiffres-là petit à petit, mais de manière sûre. Merci.
Humility. Coming back to Honorable, Your Excellency, one of the things that we find is the architecture. The architecture, women, sometimes we have numbers. Africa is a continent, with Rwanda being the country with the highest number of women consistently in 2-3 parliaments. We find women going into the political space. It's like pouring new wine in old wineskin. The architecture. We walk into the African Union building today. We see a whole wall with male. If we were going to protest, what would we have done, Honorable Tchabalala, 2 days before? I think we should have just done a protest and covered all those portraits and put new portraits. We need new portraits in our house at the African Union. We need all the mothers, all the women who went and who actually formed Pan-Africanism. Organization of African Union was preceded by power. So the architecture in its physical sense, in the barometer, we talk about women in political parties. That's where our analysis actually started. If we don't fix the governance architecture, and I'm going to borrow Honorable bastardized governance, democratic governance that we talk about, it's not even how Africa, this is not our governance system. So, and I think the African Charter actually on governance architecture is the rethinking of how do we rethink this whole governance, because we are still complying to what the colonialists put in place. We are still answerable to a structure and a system that does not even want women to be in leadership. So, Your Excellency, the Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance really recognizes the significance of women's meaningful participation in decision-making, looking at ensuring there's social, addressing social inequality, misogyny, and everything that we see. How have this been implemented? I think we want to live and say we have a charter. How accountable and what should we be doing with this charter, with the statistics that we see?
Well, thank you very much indeed for this question. But allow me, before I respond, to just touch a bit on the historical concept of our political governance system in Africa. As has been mentioned by many, I think in many cases we don't really benefit from our history, because simply the history was not written by us, number one. And because our history that we now learn in the schools and universities, it in fact speaks about other stakeholders more than African stakeholders. As a result, I think we are really disconnected from our history. And once you are disconnected from your history, that means you are disconnected from your roots. Because there is no way you can connect with your roots without really knowing where these roots are and what happened during the time of that history. So I always go around and say, you know what, the time has come for us as Africans to sit down and rethink about how we can rewrite our history, number one. And the reason is obvious, that we need to reconnect with our roots. This is number one. Number two, Africa has been many times called the hopeless continent, the dark continent, the dead continent, the laziest continent, all kind of negativity, and none of those who wrote these articles was able to prove that what they were claiming to be true. Because in reality, Africa is rising, Africa is the future, and Africa, in fact, is now the heart of the world. Most of the natural resources that are running the world are coming from Africa. But the problem is, to what extent we as Africans know about what Africa is all about. Throughout my work with the African Union, I go around Africa and I meet youth in particular, young men and women, and many of them, they haven't been to the capital city of their own country. Many of them, they don't even care about who is running the show, who is the president in their own country. Many of them, they don't know nothing across the border. How many African countries, and of course, in many cases, they don't even know what is the African Union is all about. So the question is now, with all of the good numbers we have and the statistics we have, are we on the right path? This is a question. The other point that I would like to raise before I come to your question is the fact that we have seen, as you mentioned, very good examples in Africa, like Rwanda, for example. Rwanda's women participation in the parliament is between 62 to 64. But how many of them are youth? Only two. Two parliamentarians below the age of 35. In the same country that is very successful in promoting the rights of women. And we, I'm sure, heard about that bill that was introduced to them to extend the maternity leave for women, which was killed by the same women that are members of the parliament. So the question is it about numbers or is it about quality? Is it about numbers or is it about quality? Now let me go to your question, so I will not dominate the floor. The African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance was introduced in 2007. And it was done by a number of scholars that came from all regions of Africa, 5 regions of Africa, with all the differences in our legal systems, governance systems. So in reality, if you read the ACTEC, this is the acronym for it. The ACTEC is the true jurisprudence that has been contributed by Africa to the international governance system, because it focuses on many aspects in one document. It is not only about governance, it is also the governance, democracy, human rights, fighting corruptions, participation of women, participation of youth. So in fact, it is a fabulous treaty. And when it was introduced in 2007, it was introduced to promote, of course, the good the system, the governance system in Africa, but also to prevent coup d'etats from happening in Africa. So then we can try to continue the dreams that were founded by our founding mothers and fathers, to have an Africa that is united, prosperous, and peaceful. But the reality is, number one, the treaty, and I will just quickly summarize, the treaty entered into force in 2012. Today we are in 2024. How many Africans ratified? 39 from 55. How many countries domesticated? 2. 2 countries, Rwanda and Togo. So how far are we from the domestication of this very important treaty? Last but not least, and this is a very important point, some countries reported on the charter that they have really achieved very successful stories. Among them is a country that created women wings within all the political parties. But all the women wings in all the 17 political parties are led by men. I will stop here, so I will not dominate the floor.
That's a great point to stop. And I'm just thinking in the audience, how many of you know about the African Charter on Governance, Democracy, and Elections? I like calling it A, B, C, D, E because it covers a lot. Okay, so Your Excellency, we need to also popularize this charter, and because democracy, governance, and elections is just not for political office. So when we look at all sectors, we all have, even our own organizations, our standards should be above what we see and what is put out in the treaty. So maybe one thing that we can do collectively, because we push for ratification of Maputo Protocol, we are pushing for its implementation. This is also a charter that we should actually be pushing for. And I think we can take it on as the women's movement to say, we will really work with your office to make sure that it's pushed. And, as part of when we are reporting for UN, the SDGs, the CEDAW, all those international conventions, we should also mention the domestication of this charter. It might unlock, and can be one of the instruments we use. So, Madame Cecile, what meaningful your experience coming from West Africa? We've seen that it's one of the regions also with Central Africa, where we've seen a lot of coup d'etats. I think Ambassador mentioned that. And in the barometer, there was a mention of electoral bodies where, sometimes elections are just elections. And it doesn't mean that if the body is led by another gender, the system still has these hidden ways and power, what we call hidden power in the feminist movement. So I just wanted to know a little bit what are some of the meaningful, what meaningful issues can we, or sort of like solutions that we can actually implement and foster. And I also liked that the Josephine, as you shared in the barometer, countries which have incentives for political party, where you get political financing if you have more women. Yeah, so what are some of the meaningful issues?
Ok, merci beaucoup. Il y en a beaucoup. J'en discutais avec membre de notre délégation, Madame Fanta Kumba Karambe, qui est un leader de parti politique au Mali hier en arrivant, parce que cette période transitoire est une période pleine de défis pour nos pays, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, mais il y a aussi la Guinée, il y a le Gabon aussi, qui a connu le coup d'État, et le Tchad, si on veut en parler également. Les défis que cela soulève, c'est qu'il y a une forte volonté populaire de voir la gouvernance changer. Beaucoup de gens disent oui, les populations sont en train d'applaudir le coup d'État. Et c'est la seule lecture que les gens font. Or, si l'on lit, si l'on entend, si l'on discute avec les populations, elles n'applaudissent pas le coup d'État. Elles applaudissent l'opportunité qui est offerte de faire autrement. Maintenant, il faut saisir cette opportunité. L'opportunité de faire participer plus amplement les jeunes et les femmes à la gouvernance. Énormément de choses ont été faites, il y a eu énormément de rencontres, mais de parler à être écouté, il y a une différence. Et pour moi, pour nous, à NIMD, c'est l'un des grands défis que nous avons à adresser dans cette période transitoire. Tous ces pays disent, on organise des assises, on fait parler les femmes, on fait parler les jeunes, tout le monde est autour de la table. Mais est-ce qu'on entend ce que ces gens disent? J'en doute. Donc pour nous, cette période transitoire est une fenêtre. C'est même une porte. Elle est grande ouverte. On parle du Mali, du Niger, du Burkina, mais le monde entier est en transition aujourd'hui. Dans les pays occidentaux, avec la montée des extrêmes, le monde entier est en transition. Et nous devons saisir cette opportunité-là pour créer le nouveau monde auquel nous aspirons. Il existe des textes, il existe des opportunités. Encore faut-il s'en saisir. Et c'est là que pour moi, le défi de nos organisations est très grand. C'est de quitter le statement pour aller vers l'action. Et cette fenêtre d'opportunité-là, pour renforcer les compétences des femmes, renforcer les compétences des jeunes, leur donner une vraie place et une vraie légitimité. Je vais vous dire quelque chose qui va peut-être choquer. Moi, je suis contre les quotas. Parce que pour moi, aujourd'hui, les quotas desservent plus qu'ils ne servent. On met la femme autour de la table juste pour avoir une femme. Or, le défi pour nous, c'est d'avoir des femmes de qualité autour de la table. Et si l'on n'agit pas sur l'éducation, si l'on n'agit pas sur le renforcement de l'estime de soi, la formation sur le leadership, etc., on aura 30% de femmes au Parlement, mais comme l'a dit quelqu'un ce matin, elles iront dormir, elles iront voter, elles porteront leur gros boubou, elles seront très jolies, mais ça n'aura aucun impact sur la vie de la nation. Donc, au lieu de nous concentrer sur les 30%, les 25%, si nous avons 10% de femmes influentes qui comprennent et qui ont la capacité de négocier et d'obtenir des choses, nous aurons plus de gains qu'avec un quota. Donc, aujourd'hui, le travail, à notre avis, dans notre zone sahélienne et sur lequel nous investissons beaucoup, c'est vraiment de renforcer cette capacité des femmes et des jeunes femmes en particulier à prendre le lead de leur propre vie d'abord, parce qu'on offre au monde que ce qu'on a, de leur propre vie d'abord, puis connaître les instruments, connaître les lois, connaître les textes et être en capacité de négocier. Négocier dans leur famille, avec leurs conjoints, les belles familles, pour pouvoir avoir du temps pour s'occuper de leurs ambitions. Négocier dans les partis, pour avoir des positions. On n'a pas besoin d'être présidente de parti pour être influençante, influenceuse, je ne sais pas, dans le parti. Donc, savoir d'où l'on se place, qu'est-ce que l'on veut changer, avoir des gains step by step, et arriver à ce changement structurel. Parce qu'encore une fois, ce n'est pas juste se tenir au pupitre et parler. On peut ne pas être là, être dans sa cuisine et obtenir des choses. Et c'est ça qu'il faut qu'on repense. Nous toutes qui sommes en train d'agir et utiliser tous ces relais communautaires, toutes ces femmes qui au niveau local ont une vraie influence pour gagner dans la déconstruction de ce système qui a été mis en place et pouvoir avancer. Je m'en arrête là. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. So I'm going to, if we have some mics, I'm going to turn to the audience and also just hear from you. I think there's so much that we've heard from Cecile and Your Excellency. A lot. I mean, I have very strong opinions on women quality versus quantity. Who says issues around some of this quota system? But of course, I also want to just hear, so if you have any reflections, and please make them as submissions. We want submissions in terms of what would be some of your submissions. So please just lift your hand. Jean is moving around. All right, so I'll take you. So Jean, you direct me. We'll take about 5 and then we'll come. Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Thank you very much to the panelists for your contributions. I'd like to make a comment and also pose a question to Your Excellency. My question is, how is the AU responding to this lack of awareness about what the AU does, and in particular, in the promotion of the African Charter on Democracy in Elections and Governance? Because this document is very important. And for example, I'd like to give an example of the institution where I work, the Gore Institute. We have a program under the Charter Project, which is specifically promoting the African Charter through the use of through digitalization of the Charter. So this is one way that as a research institute, we are trying to promote it among the African youth and using organizations and asking them to see how they can use the Charter, in the election processes. So, I mean, it is true that
I'll ask you, sorry, just to be precise.
Yes.
I've got a timer, so no more than 2 minutes.
Yes, I'm through. So I think I just wanted to let us know how are you responding to this lack of awareness about the community, young people, about what the AU does. And the AU is always looked at as a body that is out of touch with people. So how do you connect the AU to the grassroots for them to know that the AU is a body that represents the citizens on the ground? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I have 2 questions, and the very first one is, how significant do we think educational reform or rethinking education is important in these conversations? Because today I was challenged a lot as a young person by Honorable Shabalala. I'm talking about pre-colonial African history and a lot of things that young people like myself did not know through schools, through our educational curriculum. So how are we ensuring that we're revisiting, redefining, redesigning our educational curriculum so our young people are taught our history, they know our roots, and by that we're able to define what governance and leadership and democracy means for us as Africans and the African continent. And the second one, I wanted to talk about political party strengthening. I had someone talk about the establishment of women wings, and where I come from, to some extent, even women wings are meant to further marginalize women in political party processes, because you talk to political party leaders and they say, oh, but we do have women wings. We do have women in these wings, but are these women represented at central executive committees? Are these women able to take up space? Are they able to lead? So how are we factoring in the need for political party strengthening? How are we focusing on building internal party democracy that upholds the values of inclusion, that upholds the values of increasing participation for not just women, but also young people as well? And finally, what I wanted to also ask is, how can we ensure that in these conversations around democracy, whether it's transitioning or strong democracies, how are we ensuring that the conversations on representation and participation are not just elitist conversations? How are we taking it back to the communities? How are we talking to the women that matter? Because in my country, for example, when women contest for elections, because misogyny and patriarchy is internalized a lot, you hear women say, our biggest enemies are other women. They don't talk about the issues. They don't talk about, the barriers that are caused by men. They focus on the issues that they encounter because of other women, because they are taught your biggest enemy as a woman is a woman. So how are we making sure that these conversations are not just elitist, but we're taking it back to the women in the grassroots, so they're also able to share their experiences, but also be a part of the solutions that we seek to achieve in the long run?
May I please ask you to make submissions which are very short, very precise?
Thank you. My name is Rita from Uganda. One, I would like to know why only 2 countries have signed up to the charter. What could be the challenge and what are the follow-up actions? And then the last one is really, for me, the issue of rethinking about numbers. I want to agree with my sister that many of us are rethinking the issue of numbers. We are seeing a number of women getting into political leadership and other spaces of leadership, but they're the same women who are being sponsored by people who are against women's advancement. And many of them are introducing laws that are regressive to women's rights and gender equality. For example, laws on sexual and reproductive health rights, laws on marriage, laws on sexual offenses, women's land and property rights. So this is the space for us to pinpoint where exactly the problem is. Is it the numbers or is it our politics? Thank you.
I'll come with the second.
We are seeing more hands. I think there was one behind.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Dastatala. I'm from Ethiopia, politician and human rights advocate. I want to thank you both panelists and the panelists and the people who are answering the questions as they are delegated from where they come. So my question is for the African Union representative. There are a lot of documents that African Union is preparing and adapting every time. But what is your follow-up and controlling mechanism on those countries to adapt and ratify and domesticate those laws and regulations as an African Union member? So what is your follow-up mechanism? For example, there is a quota issue here in this hall. Again, people are talking about two different things, about the number and about the quota and the quality. So why quality is always raised if there is women participation? We don't know, even for the last years since the earth is, come here, men are leading. We never audited or asked them if they are qualified or not. So why this question is always raised in women political participation, leadership, and decision making. And then one of my issue is, for example, in Rwanda, we have 63%, as our presenter has said, there is 63% women parliamentarian. So there, again, quality issue is one of the questions. So at the same time, we have to work on the number, on the quality, and then on all women participation, leadership, and decision-making ability, capacitation, empowering, and all those things will bring the issue to the solution.
Yes.
The other question I have is for the other presenter, only one half minute, is are you saying if African governors are not coming to their democratic state or inclusive governing system, everywhere there could be coup d'etat, or are you saying they should be careful of their way of democratization? Thank you.
I think for me, Honorable, I want your commitment to us today. This town on which we stand, Addis Ababa, was founded and named by Taitu Betul, Empress. Her picture is not on the AU wall. How do you live in a town that was named by a woman, but her picture is nowhere? So can we get your commitment as feminists that we are going not to see her statue outside Parliament, but that we will see her picture on the wall? We will assist you with that campaign, but can we get your commitment? Can we also, Akina Mama and Feminet, get the commitment that post this, we will start a campaign, because you want submissions, memory. 5-year, 10-year, we will take it by strides. We need to get statues of women in Parliament. Like for Ghana, we need to get the statue of Theodosi Oko. She's the one who founded the flag of Ghana. Why is the statue not in front of the Parliament of Ghana? We need the statue of Winnie Madikizela Mandela in front of the Parliament of South Africa. We need the one of Nehanda in front of the Parliament of Zimbabwe. So it's a project that we can keep it going. Thank you.
The last one, and then we'll come back. Yes, just a last hand, then we'll come. And if we have time, we'll take more. Just behind you. 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for me, I'm Lucy, a woman with disability. And my question is that we have conventions like the UN Convention on Persons with Disabilities. What is the role of African Union to make sure that those countries that ratify those laws, they really do it, not for the sake of it, but at least they are meaningful and that they speak to
the rights of women and girls with disabilities? And the other question would be, what is the plan for financing the women participation in political spaces? Because this is one of the barriers that make women with disabilities and women in general not to participate in politics.
Thank you. So we are going to, I see so many other hands, but our time. So I'll go straight, Madame Cecile. I won't repeat the questions. I hope you can answer.
Merci beaucoup pour toutes vos questions. Il y en a beaucoup, beaucoup, beaucoup. Alors, je vais essayer de répondre et si j'en oublie, vous m'aiderez à m'en souvenir. La première que j'ai notée, c'est par rapport à l'éducation. Est-ce qu'on doit repenser l'école? Oui, on doit repenser l'école. Honorable Tchabalala l'a dit ce matin, notre éducation ne nous appartient pas. Notre éducation, nos programmes scolaires sont élaborés, financés, contrôlés par des bailleurs de fonds. On va dire la vérité. Dans nos pays, pour avoir de l'argent pour payer les enseignants, il faut implémenter le programme scolaire que le bailleur dicte. Et donc, à partir de ce moment-là, nous perdons ce qui est notre essence. Nous perdons ce qui est nos valeurs. Et aujourd'hui, l'un des défis est celui-là. Je reviens sur nos pays en transition politico-militaire, où la question des valeurs est extrêmement remise sur la table. On va retourner à nos valeurs. Et moi, ça me fait un peu peur, parce qu'il y a bonnes valeurs et mauvaises valeurs. Et donc, il nous faut interroger quelles sont les valeurs que nous voulons pour construire notre avenir, que nous voulons léguer aux générations, parce qu'on ne construit pas le Mali, le Sénégal, le Zimbabwe pour 2024. On le construit pour 2124. Et donc, quelles sont les valeurs que nous voulons porter en 2124? C'est la question qu'il nous faut nous poser pour repenser notre éducation. Où est-ce que nous voulons que nos enfants dans 4 générations soient? Est-ce qu'on veut juste encore produire des travailleurs, des esclaves du système, ingénieurs en ceci, agronomes en cela, et qui ne s'épanouissent pas dans leur travail, qui n'apportent rien à la construction spiritualo-culturello-sociale de leur pays? On n'y est pas aujourd'hui. Nos universités produisent en masse des techniciens, mais des chômeurs qui n'ont pas ce feu-là, qui les brûle pour construire leur pays. Donc, il nous faut, oui, repenser cette éducation-là. Et ça passe, à mon entendement, par une réappropriation et aussi par un effort de nos pays pour financer eux-mêmes nos écoles. Il faut qu'on arrête d'aller chercher de l'argent à Bretton Woods pour financer nos écoles, parce qu'on a les moyens de le faire nous-mêmes. L'autre point, comment renforcer la démocratie dans les partis? Il me semble que il faut déjà beaucoup de formation. Au NIMD, nous sommes très fiers de nos écoles démocratiques que nous mettons en œuvre dans une dizaine de pays aujourd'hui, qui forment des centaines de jeunes de tous bords, de tout parti politique, de toute opinion, de toute idéologie, et qui leur permet d'avoir une légitimité. Je pense que ce mot est extrêmement important et je vais y revenir quand on parle de la qualité des femmes dans le champ politique. Pour être dans le champ politique, il faut être légitime. Et on ne peut pas être légitime si on n'a pas la qualité. Beaucoup de femmes aujourd'hui sont dans le champ politique, mais leur action, leur position desservent le combat féminin. Parce qu'elles n'ont pas, c'est pas parce qu'elles ne sont pas bonnes, mais parce qu'elles ne disposent pas de tous les rouages, de toutes les compétences qu'il faut pour jouer le rôle qu'il est le leur. Et donc, on se sert de leurs lacunes comme d'un argument pour dire, vous voilà, vous voyez, vous vouliez une place à la table, on vous la donne, vous n'êtes même pas capable de faire le travail. Et ça dessert toutes celles qui viennent derrière et qui peuvent, qui veulent, qui ont envie de contribuer. Donc, mon entendement n'est pas que, ouais, parce qu'il y a des hommes qui ne sont pas capables, mettons des femmes qui ne sont pas capables. L'argument des femmes qui ne sont pas capables nous dessert. Il nous faut des femmes qui sont capables. Même si c'est 4, c'est 5. Le fait qu'elles posent ce statement va ouvrir la voie à 20 derrière. Et ces 20 ouvriront la voie à 100 derrière. Mais une seule femme incompétente ferme la porte à toutes les autres femmes. Et c'est ça qu'il faut qu'on garde en tête. Et c'est pour ça que la formation dans les partis politiques est extrêmement importante. Les partis ne veulent pas y investir. Nous, investissons-y. Laissons-les ne pas faire leur travail. Ils seront surpris de se réveiller un matin et de se rendre compte que il y a des femmes qui sont capables de faire le job et elles sont prêtes. Elles vont arriver comme une masse et elles vont prendre la place. Yes. Travaillons on the ground, je pense que c'est utile. Est-ce qu'il faut avoir peur des pays où la démocratie n'est pas respectée? Oui, parce que le monde a changé. Parce que les jeunes ont le regard dans le monde entier. Ils voient ce qui se passe ailleurs. Ils ont des ambitions, ils ont des désirs. Ils veulent se développer et ils ne vont plus laisser les choses se passer comme elles se passaient avant. Le pendant, c'est qu'on risque d'avoir des régimes qui sont de plus en plus durs. Parce que si les jeunes ont de plus en plus envie, et que les régimes ne veulent pas leur laisser la place, ils seront de plus en plus coercitifs. D'où l'importance de former ces jeunes-là pour qu'ils soient de vrais contre-pouvoirs, pour qu'ils aient la capacité d'analyser les situations, qu'ils aient des compétences de négociation et qu'ils puissent se placer aux positions où leur voix a de l'influence et où ils peuvent obtenir des choses. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Yes, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me begin by a general comment, and then I will answer a few of the questions that were not answered by my sister here. I think when we are talking about women participation in politics, that should not be the ceiling of our campaign. Because what is the essence of having women in politics if they are not really in a very safe environment? So I think the safety and security of women is also a priority. I remember when I was growing up, I never heard of the word rape. Never. I never heard of it until I maybe left my village to the capital city. Why? Because in our village, we were brought up to understand that each and every female in that village is a sister. And the protection of that sister is the responsibility of all the young men and old men in that village. And by the way, things have changed. So therefore, I think what we really need to do as we are campaigning for the promotion of the participation of women in politics is to enlarge the campaign to include other priorities such as the safety of and security of women. Also, I think it's important to have, as usually the case is, some strategic plans that have long-term objectives as well as short-term objectives. Why I'm saying this? Because if the focus is only about the numbers and not the quality at the same time, then I think in reality, and please excuse me, we don't have much to celebrate today. Because in 2019, according to the numbers we have between 2021 and 2024, the participation has been increased by only 1%. That is not much to celebrate. I'm sorry to say that. And I really hope in your next conference, you will have more men sitting here in this table as he's for she's. It's very important that we attract men to support this campaign and to come to this room here and pledge their support publicly. So that when they go back, they will not show another face, as usually the case is. That's how we can ensure that this campaign at the end will achieve its goals and objectives. This is my general comment. The lack of awareness about the African Union, it is really a reality. Not many African people know that this African Union exists. And in many cases, they confuse it with CAF. The football, seriously, even politicians, when we go to promote some of these charters, they say, oh, you are from the CAF. No, I'm not from the CAF, I'm from the EU. Well, the EU is like the CAF, no? We have a serious problem. Why? Because unfortunately, when the African Union was created as the Organization of African States, it was created as a club for governance, for member states at the level of the officials. Yes, after the transformation of the OAU to AU, our heads of state and government made a promise to open up the union and make it a people-centered organization, but we are far away. And I'm saying this with all full responsibility, whether I lose my job or not, that the African Union today is quite far from achieving that particular goal. But how can we achieve it? We can achieve it if we all African people are in fact speaking on behalf of the African Union. Let's all, each and every one of you today in this room, appoint herself and themselves as men as well as ambassadors of the African Union. Within your networks, if you can speak about the African Union, I think that will make a big difference. There is one particular issue that was raised about the promotion and implementation and ratification of treaties, and that would be my last intervention. Well, I think there are two quite important issues. One is the implementation of these treaties. Someone wanted to know why only 2 reported on it. As I mentioned, we had 39 ratification, but only 2 member states submitted reports of implementation so far. And that is almost like less than 1%. So what we really need to do, we need to really hold our politicians, those who have very short memories, we need to hold them accountable and to remind them, listen, you have obligations to report on this very important treaty. That could also be done by you and through your networks and the organizations that are members of your network. One important issue, the African Union doesn't have an army. We don't have police. Why? Because our obligation is to represent the continent in international forums, and within the continent, we help our member states to develop instruments that could be implemented by our member states. So the obligation is on the shoulders of our member states, but you as African citizens, you can always speak up and ask your parliamentarians and politicians why my country is not implementing this treaty, why my country is not reporting on this treaty. The issue of the education reform this year has been declared as the year of education in Africa. Why? Because we all realize, leave alone our heads of state and government, that there is really need to revisit our education system in Africa. Today, the elites and the businessmen and the rich men and women, they don't send their kids to universities in Africa. They send them to Oxford, to Yale, to what? But guess who's teaching them there? African professors. Who's treating them when they get sick and go to London University Hospital? African doctors. So if our universities can produce fine doctors and professors, why can't we encourage all and every African citizen to send their kids to school instead of spending millions of dollars outside? I think what we really need to do, we need to also look, while we're having this conversation, into the issue of the mindset. Why? Because we have been taught by those who are superior to us that the black color is a bad color. Because bad starts with B, black starts with B. But they forgot to continue the sentence, and I'm sorry, Madam Moderator, that in fact black starts with B, but beautiful starts with B. We have been told that your African features are not beautiful. But when we compete with them, our African women win the competitions. Lately, you saw yesterday or the day before yesterday, a Jamaican black woman won the competition of the Miss Universe. And who was her first, what they call them? It was a Nigerian black woman. So in reality, we need to be proud of our African rich heritage. And starting from that point, then we can continue to make the difference. Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Moderator, this is a comment.
Thank you.
Madam Moderator, there's one news I would like to share. Well, I wish I had the opportunity to come and share some information with you about the AGA, but just one project that we are currently working on, and hopefully it will be revealed during the summit of February 2025. We are trying to collect portraits and pictures of our queens. Currently, we have identified 22 of them. Sadly, not many of them have pictures, because at that time there was no, but we are using our imagination. And hopefully soon, when you come to the African Union as a woman, you will not only see men pictures, you will also see women pictures.
Okay. It's good that excellency are being recorded. So this is something we'll take up, and we will make sure in Zimbabwe they are also building the Museum of Pan-Africanism. So the Zimbabweans in the room, that's also something we should take. I see Paul nodding his head. We should take and make sure we also have, because it's Pan-African, it has all the countries we have. I'm going to take questions from our online audience. Chimwe, if you can help us with that. And I'm going to take two burning, then we have to close because we stand between lunch and we have to close the panel very quickly. So I'll take two. Okay, I'll do 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I'll do Paul. But I'll be strictly 1 minute, our time. Yes, if our online questions are ready. Okay, so whilst they're coming on, Come.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask if at all there is a specific reason why for more than 50 years after Africa has gained its independence, there is not yet a platform for councillors at the continental and regional levels. We see that when we are talking about women political participation, the focus is mainly on the parliament, which houses the senators and the MPs. But I am a councillor. I haven't seen such platforms. Are you not excluding us? I think it is time that you also create space for the local government, because the platforms that are there are only attended by local government ministry officials. But if you are to be inclusive, you also need to carry along the councillors.
If they don't give us space, we create our own. Are we ready online? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ngala Nadesh. I am from the Northwest region of Cameroon. I am a gender activist. My worry goes to the ambassador. You spoke about security. If we can't be here without security. My region, I come from the Northwest region of Cameroon. For over 6 years now, there have been a crisis in my region. Girls are unable to go to school. My mom died. On my way to the hospital, we were intercepted by armed groups. She died. Girls are not going to school, literally not going to school. I, for one, I stopped school due to insecurities. I tried to get a master's degree last year. They said the gap was too much. I stopped school in 2019 within the crisis. And I've not been able to get admission in any university in my region due to that gap. Now, what is the African Union doing as far as the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest region is concerned? Because it seems as if nothing is being done. Our voices are not being heard. We are not able to go to school to get our things done due to this insecurity. So what is the African Union doing to address what we are going through in the Northwest and the Southwest regions of my country? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the last one.
Thank you. I would like to speak.
Yes.
Online.
Yes, go ahead.
My name is Mr. Cage, and I work with the Kenya Female Advisory Organization. And I'm speaking online from Kisumu, Kenya. My question is that at the AU, do we really think that the political parties in Africa are really interested in ensuring that we finance women to be in politics? And that when they get political party financing, how are they strengthening the leadership development for women in politics, and particularly young women in politics? And if that political financing is there, why is it that we still are restricted to quotas and we do not see women in political spaces within Africa?
Thank you, Esther, and I hope all is well in Kisumu and you're enjoying your holiday today. Another question online.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Paul from Zimbabwe, and I identify myself as a gender activist. My challenge, rather, or my question to His Excellency and other men that are here is really, I think if you look back in the last 10 or 15 years, we've had quite a number of he for she's, or men that are identifying themselves as he for she's. But statistics, as it is showing there, is not reflecting to the number of men who are he for she's. So rather, my question is, what is it that we are not doing right as men, or as the he for she's? Or rather, what is it that we need to do differently so that really, by the time we get back to, say, Beijing at 60, we need to have seen the role that the he for she's have played in these spaces. Sometimes I actually get to be shameful to identify myself as a he for she, because when I go back to my country and I look at the statistics, it's shameful and it's disheartening for me to actually raise my hand and say, I'm a he for she. What are you doing? So thank you.
Okay. I think we have to close. Chinwe is giving me a nod. Okay, just one. Okay, if you make it short, we can have more. So just.
Winnie is my name, from Uganda, a politician, and was the first female leader of the opposition in the Parliament of Uganda since independence. I would like to just put this to His Excellency. Your Excellency, you have given us the latitude to be ambassadors of the African Union in the countries where we come from. But my worry is that the seat of the African Union, which is Ethiopia, still has barriers for African countries to access Ethiopia. While coming to Ethiopia, we face challenges at the airport or visas. It's just a question, how do we face challenges coming to our home as African nations? I thought, for starters, at least we would have visa-free entry to the borders of Ethiopia because this is our home. And so in our efforts to publicize and popularize the African Union, that should be your package as well. What should African countries do to ensure that they can easily access their home? Then two is about the issue of quality versus quantity. This has been a story now for some time, and it re-echoes the campaign and the writings in the Beyond Numbers. When we sit here, and I want to thank all of us who are here because there is a lot that we have done to ensure that women are equipped with the necessary skills and knowledge to enable them participate in their leadership positions wherever they are, no matter the significant increases that we are making. Every small step matters, and we need to celebrate it, whether it is a 1% or a 2% or a 0% increment. As long as there is an increment, we need to celebrate it. The unfortunate bit is that majority of us seated in this room who would possibly have the qualities that would enable us to go to where we want to go do not want to participate in direct politics. And yet you are doing politics in your organizations. And then we really take time and build the capacities. But after we have built the capacities, we don't finance. So the gatekeepers finance the political participants, and these are the men. So in a way, they control what the women will do when they are into the political spaces. And we find that we lose it. So there is need for us to begin now looking out for ways of equipping, skilling, retooling, and resourcing the women that we train for political participation so that they can be answerable to us and do the things that we would love them to do when they are in their political spaces. But otherwise, I thank the women here because for me, I'm a product of women skilling of politicians. And I want to thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
Eunice, and the other women in Uganda who have really done a great job for World Women Democracy Network that have ensured that I be the woman that I am in my political space.
Thank
you.
And for fighting against all odds.
For me, thank you for the opportunity. And Your Excellency, you talk about, I think you are a grandchild for Kandakarinas. Yeah, that is mean you're from Sudan. Yeah, okay. I'm from Sudan too. I'm Miss Rashia. And for me, I had a big question and big blame for the African Union. You talk about Sudan a lot on your village, and now you talk about how the men respect women there, and now there's two men are fighting there and destroying everything, raping women, and I don't know where is the African Union now, because we're suffering. When I talk now, Al Jazeera is burning. Al Jazeera state is burning. Many women and men died. Actually, I think from week till now, the death is hundreds and more. Child lost, women. Actually, the last year it was here for the summit about women's security, and the first day I didn't hear about Sudan. I hear about Palestine too much, actually. Yeah, I'm solidarity with with Palestine, and everywhere is fighting war, but we are here in Africa. We are here near to Ethiopia. For me, it's frustrated. It's that's it.
I just wanted us to pause and just think of our sisters and all the forgotten conflicts and crises. I think we come here to AU, it's our life. We just don't come here and say, what are you doing? What is this institution doing? Because we live our realities every single day. The women who stand here, who have been nominated in parliament, have lost everything. I live and work in Kenya. I have friends who've disappeared. I can't say it. I come from Zimbabwe. If I say certain things, I might not go back home. And there's so many other issues that I feel there's so much. I was in Cameroon. We had to wait. You can't travel on Monday. There are curfews. I think the reality on the ground is carried by women. It's carried by our sisters. We have sisters in exile who can't go back to their countries, from Mali, who are displaced in the Sahel. Darfur there's starvation. It's beyond a humanitarian crisis. There's starvation as we speak. We have our IGAD headquarters. We have AMISOL. We have all these institutions and all these structures and all these conventions. Even in this land where we are, we have children who've been born in a crisis, who we don't know where, who, I mean, yeah, this is us in Africa. I think the tears of mothers, of women, are never taken up as much as we think they should be. And we should never forget. So I just thought we just need to take that moment and pause and say we stand in solidarity. But what is solidarity when there's no solution? So we hope and we urge our AU as an institution who have the teeth that we demand it to have, and stop all these wars, silence the guns, and be the institute that it was meant to be. We are closing our panel. I can't even look this side because Chimwe would say, hey, just shut the mic. But Madame Cecile, 1 minute, and Ambassador, I think there's so many questions, even online. In the afternoon, there'll be more interactions. So just one parting shot, what would you say? What would you pledge?
Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais rendre hommage à toutes ces femmes. Vous avez cité vos pays, mais je pense que les réalités sont les mêmes partout. Même dans les pays où il n'y a pas de guerre, les réalités sont très difficiles pour les femmes. N'être femme aujourd'hui en Afrique n'est pas la meilleure des opportunités, mais en même temps, je pense que nous ici et beaucoup d'autres avons le devoir générationnel d'agir. Et peu importe l'action finalement, en fait, juste prendre une sœur dans ses bras, c'est l'action aussi. Parce que ça lui permet à ce moment-là d'avoir un mieux-être pour avoir de la force pour continuer. Nos discussions ne sont pas élitistes. Nous qui sommes ici représentons nos sœurs derrière. Et je pense que c'est cette responsabilité que nous devons endosser,
oui,
définitivement, et nous dire que nous ne parlons pas pour nous, pour nos privilèges, pour notre place dans le monde, pour être vus et entendus, mais parce que celles qui vivent des défis, des malheurs au quotidien, ont besoin de notre voix pour être entendues. Merci beaucoup de nous avoir donné cet espace. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much indeed for all the questions. And since there is no time to answer all of them, let me just make 2 quick comments. The first one, I think it is very important for women, as been mentioned by my brother, to include men supporters in this campaign. When you are going out for campaigning, please don't go alone. Take your husband with you. Take your kids with you, your male kids with you, your cousin males with you. Try to plant that seed within them since they are quite young, to know for sure and to believe that this continent of us will not be developed without the participation of women in African politics, period. Second comment. Sudan, Cameroon, and many other countries are going through a very challenging time. But I think it's important for us to look once again into our African history. On the 7th of April 1994, at exactly 12 noon, a genocide that lasted 100 days took the lives of more than 1 million innocent souls. But where is Rwanda today? I know it is a very difficult time for our African brothers and sisters in Cameroon. It's a very difficult time for our African brothers and sisters in Sudan. But this is the time for us as Africans to stand together and to say enough is enough for all of these wars and for all of this genocide that are in the making. I'm saying this because in the African Union, we follow a political system where we depend heavily on the regional economic communities. For Sudan, we say we cannot intervene unless IGAD is leading us. In Cameroon, we cannot intervene unless ECAS is leading us. But you, as African citizens, you have no boundaries to move around. So I really encourage you to come and address the Peace and Security Council as women organizations. Come and address the PRC, Subcommittee on Human Rights, Democracy and Governance, as women organizations. Come and cry in front of them so they can feel your tears, so they can see the truth through your eyes. That is the only way for us to make the difference. But if you are waiting in your corner, waiting for the African Union to make the difference, that might not happen anytime soon. Again, it is because of the political restrictions. Collectively, we can make the difference. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I think history has taught us that women have preceded revolutions. Women are the ones who have stood in front of all pre-colonialists. And I think women, we have the courage to continue resisting all these atrocities. Thank you so much, Madame Cecile. Thank you so much, the moderators, for your generosity. And thank you so much to everyone. I know there were so many questions, and yes, we'll back to you.
Thank you. A round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. Thank you so much.